Claire's house lay wrapped in a gentle afternoon hush. The sun streamed lazily through the living room windows, painting golden stripes across the hardwood floor. Inside the nursery, 9-month-old Lily was curled up in her crib, clutching a soft, well-worn stuffed bunny. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each delicate breath, and the faint hum of her lullaby mobile added a soothing rhythm to the stillness. Near the doorway, Max, Claire's loyal German shepherd, lounged quietly. With his sleek black and tan coat and sharp, intelligent eyes, Max was an imposing figure to strangers, but to Claire and Lily he was a gentle giant, always watchful, always protective. He had been with Claire for nearly 8 years, ever since college, when he had come into her life as a clumsy puppy with endless energy. Over the years, he had grown into a calm guardian, sensitive to her moods and fiercely loyal. That afternoon, Claire stood in the kitchen glancing at her phone again. Mrs. Henderson, her elderly neighbor, had called frantically about a burst pipe flooding the basement. It sounded urgent, but Claire hesitated. Lily was asleep upstairs, and Max was resting nearby. She thought, it'll just take a minute. After pacing for a moment, she made up her mind. "Max, stay close, okay?" she said softly, bending down to scratch behind his ears. Max lifted his head, eyes locking with hers as if to say, "I've got this." Claire climbed the stairs to Lily's room. The baby's chubby cheeks were flushed with sleep, and her little hands twitched in dreams. Claire brushed a stray curl from Lily's forehead and whispered, "Mommy will be right back." The mole. Front door clicked shut behind her, muffling the soft creak of Max's paws on the wooden floor. Outside, the sun-warmed air was fresh and comforting, and Claire told herself she would hurry. After all, it was just a quick favor for a neighbor, but the minutes slipped away. What should have been a quick fix turned complicated when the plumber had to be called, and the water had already started soaking the carpet. Claire's worry grew with every passing second. She tried calling home, but the line was dead. No answer. Her mind spun in spirals of fear. Is Lily okay? She imagined the baby waking alone, frightened and crying. She pictured Max pacing, restless and uneasy without her. She pictured the worst, a crack in the crib, a fall, or worse, by the time she reached her front door again. Her hands were clammy and her heart thumped painfully in her chest. The lock was stiff under her fumbling fingers. She swung the door open, but the house was unnervingly silent. No happy barks greeted her. No tiny giggles echoed from the nursery. "Max!" she called out, voice trembling. The house seemed to swallow her words. She tiptoed to the stairs, each step creaking beneath her weight. Upstairs, the hallway stretched out like a shadowed tunnel. She pushed open the nursery door with a shaking hand and froze. The crib was empty. Lily's blanket lay crumpled on the floor, and the little stuffed bunny sat abandoned in the corner. The mattress was bare. Panic surged through Claire's veins like wildfire. "Lily!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The silence answered her back. Max was nowhere in sight. Tears blurred her vision as she raced through the rooms, calling desperately for her baby. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. Then, from the kitchen, came a soft thud. She ran toward the sound, and what she saw next stopped her breath. Claire's breath hitched as she burst into the kitchen. The soft thud she'd heard moments ago was now accompanied by a faint, unmistakable sound, a baby's laughter. The tension in her chest tightened painfully, but that tiny giggle, so pure and innocent, stopped her panic from spiraling out of control. Her eyes darted across the room. There, by the kitchen island, was Max, lying down calmly, his broad head resting protectively on the floor. But what truly held Claire frozen was the sight curled against him. Lily, her rosy cheeks flushed with excitement, clutching at Max's, fur as if it were the safest place in the world. For a heartbeat, Claire just stared, unable to move or speak. The fear that had been strangling her eased just enough to let a shuddering sob escape. "Lily," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she hurried forward and scooped her daughter into her arms. The baby cooed happily, reaching up to touch Claire's face. "Oh, my sweet girl, you're safe," Claire repeated, clutching her tightly. Max lifted his head, his eyes meeting Claire's with a steady calm that seemed to say, I did my best." As she cradled Lily, Claire's mind raced to piece together what had happened. How had Lily gotten out of the crib? Why had Max brought her here, and how had he known? Back in the nursery, Claire had barely noticed the small details until now. The crib rail was scratched and the blanket was on the floor, signs of a struggle or an adventurous escape. The baby monitor had gone silent the moment she left. Somewhere, between her frantic neighbor's call and this moment, Lily had woken up, climbed, or maybe even fallen out of the crib. But it was Max who had found her first. Instead of panic or chaos, the dog had responded with instinctive protection. He hadn't barked or run off. He had stayed close, brought Lily safely to the kitchen, and guarded her until Claire returned. Claire sat on the floor, holding Lily and stroking Max's thick fur. The house felt alive again, full of warmth and relief. Yet questions gnawed at her. What if she had been just a moment later? What if Max hadn't been here? A wave of guilt washed over her. She had left her baby alone with a dog, a decision. That now seemed reckless, even if Max was her loyal companion. But beneath the guilt, a fierce gratitude blossomed. Max wasn't just a pet. He was Lily's guardian, a silent protector with instincts sharper than anyone could have imagined. Later that evening, Claire sat by the fireplace, the events replaying in her mind like a vivid movie. She scrolled through old photos on her phone, pictures of Max as a puppy, clumsy and energetic, and Lily just days old meeting Max for the first time. The bond between them had always been there, subtle but undeniable. She remembered how Max had once saved a lost toddler at the park during college, a story Claire had told only to close friends. Max's fierce loyalty was not new, but now it felt profoundly real and personal. The hours passed as Claire paced the living room, Lily asleep on her chest. She knew she would never again underestimate the depth of Max's devotion. From this day forward, Max was not just Claire's companion. He was a guardian angel with fur. Outside, the night wrapped the house in a velvet cloak. Claire looked down at her sleeping daughter, and then at Max, who lay quietly by her feet. A silent promise formed in her heart. She would protect them both, just as Max had protected Lily. But for now, all she could do was hold her baby close and let the shock slowly give way to peace. The morning light spilled softly into Claire's bedroom as she finally drifted into a restless sleep. Lily nestled against her chest, and Max curled protectively at the foot of the bed. The events of the previous day still lingered like a shadow. In her mind, her heart pounding at the memory of the empty crib, the desperate search, and then the relief flooding through her when she found Lily safe beside Max. But sleep did little to quiet the questions swirling in Claire's mind. How had Lily gotten out of the crib? Was it really just a fall or something more? Could Max always be counted on to protect her daughter if Claire wasn't there? Her eyes fluttered open to a soft sound, almost like a whisper carried on the breeze. The door to Lily's nursery creaked gently, swinging open as if pushed by an unseen hand. Claire's breath caught in her throat. She sat up slowly, heart racing. "Max," she called softly, barely daring to breathe. No answer. The room felt still, but the silence was heavy, almost expectant. Claire climbed out of bed, her bare feet meeting the cool wood floor. She padded down the hall toward Lily's room, each step measured and slow. The door was now wide open, revealing the nursery bathed in the pale morning light. Inside, the crib stood empty again. Her breath hitched, and for a moment the familiar panic crept back. But then she noticed something new. Tiny footprints dusted, with flour tracked across the floor, little signs of movement and exploration. The baby's blanket was draped over a small pile of stuffed animals in the corner. Claire stepped inside, careful not to disturb the delicate scene. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of Lily or Max. "Lily?" she whispered. Heart pounding. A sudden sound came from the living room, a low guttural growl followed by a gentle whine. Claire froze. She rushed toward the sound, her heart hammering wildly. In the living room, she found Max standing stiffly by the couch, ears pricked and eyes fixed on the hallway. His usual calm was replaced by alertness, a subtle warning that something was amiss. Claire followed his gaze and gasped. There, near the front door, was a small bag, one she didn't recognize. It had been left partially open, and inside, scattered. On the floor were small items that had been taken from her purse earlier that morning. Her mind raced. Had someone been inside the house? Had they been watching? Max growled again, low and steady, standing like a sentinel between Claire and the unknown threat. Claire's hands trembled as she reached for her phone, dialing 911. Her voice was steady, but urgent as she reported the suspicious items. The dispatcher assured her officers were on their way. While she waited, Claire knelt beside Max, running her fingers through his thick fur. His presence was a balm to her frayed nerves, a reminder that despite everything, she was not alone. She glanced toward the nursery. Lily was still nowhere to be seen. Panic gripped her again. Suddenly, a soft giggle echoed from behind the couch. Claire's head snapped in that direction, and there, nestled safely behind a cushion, was Lily. She was giggling, reaching out to Max, who wagged his tail tentatively. Relief crashed over Claire like a wave. She scooped Lily into her arms, holding her tight. Max relaxed, lying down beside them, his protective watch never ceasing. That morning, Claire understood more deeply than ever that the world was full of unseen dangers and unexpected heroes. Max was not just a dog, but a guardian who had seen and sensed threats Claire could not. As police officers arrived to investigate, Claire felt a renewed sense of gratitude and determination. She would do everything in her power to keep her family safe, but she also knew that Max was always watching, always ready, and that made all the difference. Claire barely noticed the flashing blue and red lights outside her window as the police officers arrived. Her world had narrowed to the kitchen, where moments ago she had found Lily safe and sound beside Max. Now the gravity of the situation was sinking in. Someone had been inside her home while she was away. Detective Harris, a seasoned officer, with kind eyes, stepped inside and took in the scene quickly. "Mrs. Parker, thank you for calling us right away. We'll do a thorough sweep of the house. In the meantime, is your daughter all right?" Claire nodded, still holding Lily close, the baby's tiny fingers grasping at her shirt. "She's fine, thanks to Max," Claire said, her voice thick with emotion. "He saved her. I don't know what would have happened if he wasn't here." Max sat obediently by the kitchen door, his eyes flickering between Claire and the officers, alert but calm. Claire glanced down at him, overwhelmed by a surge of gratitude. This dog, her guardian, had done more than she could ever ask. Detective Harris began questioning Claire about the suspicious bag and the scattered items. Claire explained she had left the house briefly to help her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who had a burst pipe in her basement. When she returned, she found the bag and the broken crib rail. "It looks like whoever came in was searching for something," Harris said thoughtfully. "Luckily, it seems they didn't find anything valuable, and more importantly, didn't find your daughter." Claire shuddered at the thought. The idea of an intruder in her home while her baby was alone was terrifying beyond words. But Max's presence had made all the difference. After the officers completed their sweep and took statements, Claire sat down at the kitchen table, still cradling Lily. She watched Max carefully, seeing the protective aura surrounding him. Max was more than a pet. He was her family's silent guardian. As the day wore on, Claire's mind replayed the events over and over. How had Max known exactly what to do? Had he sensed danger before Claire even left the house? She remembered the subtle ways Max had always been alert around strangers, his keen instincts sharper than anyone's. Then, a memory came rushing back. During her college years, Max had saved a lost toddler in the park. Max had found the child, stayed close, and barked loudly until the parents came running. Claire had always known Max was special, but this was a new level of devotion. That night, as Claire tucked Lily into her crib, she took a moment to look at Max. The German Shepherd was lying nearby, his eyes never leaving the baby. Claire felt an overwhelming sense of peace, knowing her daughter was safe under his watchful gaze. But she also knew this was a wake-up call. She began researching home security systems, baby monitors, and safety gates. She wanted to make sure no one could ever come close to threatening her family again. The next morning, Claire shared her story on social media, a heartfelt post about Max's bravery and the terrifying intrusion. The response was immediate and powerful. Hundreds of comments poured in from parents, dog lovers, and strangers who admired Max's loyalty and instinct. Messages flooded in. "What a hero! German Shepherds are the best guardians. Your story reminds me to trust my dog more." Claire smiled, touched by the outpouring of support. She realized Max's story was more than just her own. It was a reminder of the special bond between humans and their animals. Days turned into weeks, and the Parker household settled back into a cautious normal. Claire never left Lily alone again without Max by her side, and Max, ever vigilant, continued to watch over the little girl as if she were his own. The incident had changed them all. Claire had learned to trust her dog's instincts fully. Lily had found a lifelong protector, and Max had proven that love and loyalty were sometimes all it took to save a life. Life had slowly returned to a fragile kind of normal for Claire and her family. The once frightening memory of the intruder had begun to fade into the background, replaced by the comforting routine of baby giggles and Max's steady companionship. But beneath the surface, Claire knew that the incident had left a mark, not just on her but on Max as well. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Claire noticed a change. Max, usually calm and steady, was restless. He paced near the front door, ears perked, nose twitching as if picking up a scent no one else could detect. Claire watched him with growing concern. The dog who had protected her daughter so fiercely was suddenly uneasy. "What is it, boy?" Claire whispered, kneeling beside him. Max's eyes locked onto hers, dark and intense, before he bolted toward the back door and scratched at it urgently. Claire opened the door to the backyard, but there was nothing there, only the familiar sight of the garden bathed in soft sunlight and the occasional flutter of birds in the trees. Still, Max wouldn't settle. He paced, growled softly, and even nudged the gate as if challenging an invisible presence. Claire's mind raced. Was Max sensing something again? Could the intruder have come back, or was it something else, something buried deeper in their past? Determined to ease Max's anxiety, Claire decided to take him for a long walk through the nearby woods. The fresh air and open space had always calmed Max before, but even as they ventured further, Max remained alert, ears swiveling toward every distant sound, the rustle of leaves, a snapping twig, the faint howl of a faraway dog. Claire reached down to scratch behind his ears. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," she said softly. As they walked, memories flickered in Claire's mind. Memories of when Max was just a young puppy, abandoned on a cold street before she found him. She remembered the fear in his eyes then, the desperate need for safety and love. She had given him a home, but perhaps his past still haunted him. That evening, Claire sat down with her laptop, searching for professional dog trainers who specialized in anxiety and protective behaviors. She found a nearby expert named Sarah, known for helping dogs overcome trauma and build trust. The next day, Sarah arrived at Claire's house with gentle eyes and a calm presence. She immediately noticed Max's tension. "Max is showing signs of hypervigilance," Sarah explained. "He's protective by nature, but past trauma can make him more sensitive to perceived threats." Claire listened intently, grateful for answers. Sarah recommended a gradual desensitization plan, exposing Max to safe, controlled environments and teaching him to relax. Over the next few weeks, Claire committed to the training with dedication. Each day brought small victories. Max learning to sit quietly during visitors, staying calm when strangers passed by the window, and responding to Claire's reassuring voice even when his instincts screamed otherwise. Yet there were moments of struggle, times when Max barked at shadows or refused to enter certain rooms. Claire never scolded him. Instead, she held him close, whispering words of comfort. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Claire marveled at the bond they shared. Max wasn't just protecting her family, he was healing, growing stronger with every passing day. Meanwhile, Lily was thriving too. Now walking confidently and babbling cheerful nonsense, she had become the heart of the home. Max had adapted seamlessly to her growing energy, often seen lying patiently, as Lily pulled at his ears or climbed over his back. Claire caught herself smiling often, overwhelmed by gratitude for these two creatures who had saved each other in their own ways. But just as peace seemed to settle, a new letter arrived in the mail. An anonymous note slipped under the door. It was short and chilling. "You're not as safe as you think." Claire's blood ran cold. The past was creeping back, threatening to shatter the fragile calm. She looked down at Max, who met her gaze with unwavering loyalty. "No matter what comes," Claire said firmly, "we face it together." The anonymous note sent chills down Claire's spine. "You're not as safe as you think." Those words echoed in her mind as she stared at the blank wall, her hands trembling slightly. The fragile peace she had fought so hard to build with Max and Lily now felt threatened again. This time not by an intruder in the night, but by a shadowy menace lurking just beyond sight. She clutched the note tightly, then carefully tucked it inside her purse. She wasn't about to show fear to anyone, especially not Lily or Max, but inside she was terrified. Someone was watching them, and the message was clear. They weren't done. Claire called Detective Harris as soon as she could, her voice steady but laced with urgency. When he arrived, he immediately recognized the seriousness in her eyes. "We're going to step up patrols around your neighborhood," Harris assured her, "and I'll assign an officer to keep an eye on your property for the next few days." Claire nodded, grateful for the support, but knowing that no amount of police presence could replace Max's protective instincts. Max, sensing Claire's anxiety, stayed close by her side more than ever. His usual calm returned with a fierceness, watchful, alert, and ready to defend. He padded after her, sat quietly near the door, and refused to leave Lily's side. Days passed with an eerie quietness, broken only by the sounds of police vehicles and the comforting rhythm of Max's steady breathing at Claire's feet. But then, late one evening, something changed. Claire was in the kitchen preparing a bottle for Lily when she heard a faint noise at the back door, a soft scraping like claws against wood. Max immediately perked up, muscles tense, ears flat against his head. He growled low and deep, a sound that sent a shiver down Claire's spine. She froze, staring at the door as Max positioned himself between Claire and the sound. Seconds later, a shadow flickered outside the window. Claire's heart pounded, but she kept calm and grabbed her phone. The police were already alerted by the officer on patrol, who reported suspicious activity near her home. Max's growls grew louder, and he moved toward the door, blocking it with his massive frame. Claire reached out to him, her fingers trembling, as she whispered, "Stay with me, Max, protect Lily." The shadow suddenly darted away, disappearing into the darkness, but Max didn't relax. He barked fiercely, his voice carrying into the night. Minutes later, officers arrived, shining flashlights across the yard, but no one was there. Claire shivered, hugging Lily close. The threat had returned, closer than ever. The next morning, Claire reviewed security footage the officers had helped install. Her eyes widened as she watched a blurry figure moving near the back gate, trying to pry it open. The figure paused, seemingly aware of Max's presence, before retreating. The footage was grainy, but one thing was clear. This was no random trespasser. Someone was deliberately targeting Claire's family. Claire's mind raced with questions. Who could want to harm them? Was it connected to the first intrusion, or was there something from her past she had forgotten? Max, sensing the rising tension, remained a constant guardian. His eyes followed every visitor, and his growls warned off even the friendly neighbors. Claire realized she could never again take safety for granted. That evening, she sat on the porch with Max and Lily, the three of them a quiet fortress against the creeping darkness. She stroked Max's fur, feeling the steady thump of his heart beneath her hand. "We're in this together, boy," she murmured. "No matter what." As the sun set behind the trees, Claire made a decision. She would not let fear win. She would fight for her family's safety with everything she had, and Max, her loyal guardian, would be right by her side. But deep down, Claire knew this was only the beginning. Claire's nerves were frayed, but her resolve had never been stronger. The ominous note and the shadowy figure outside their home had turned her life upside down, but she refused to let fear dominate her. Every night, Max lay beside Lily's crib, his eyes scanning every corner of the room, ever vigilant. That Saturday afternoon, Claire decided to take matters into her own hands. She began to investigate people from her past, neighbors, acquaintances, even distant relatives. She knew someone must be behind this, but the question was who and why. Hours of searching, and a dozen phone calls later, Claire's phone buzzed, with a text message from an unknown number: "Stop looking or you'll regret it." Her breath caught. Whoever was behind this was watching her closely, even now. Determined, Claire shared the message with Detective Harris, who urged her to stay cautious, but assured her the police were intensifying patrols. Still, the threat was close, and Claire's instincts told her she couldn't wait for help alone. That evening, Claire stayed up late waiting. Max sat by the window, alert as ever, his ears twitching at every noise. Lily slept peacefully in her crib, unaware of the danger creeping closer with each passing day. Suddenly, a faint noise came from the front porch, a scraping sound, slow and deliberate. Max sprang up, growling low in his throat. "Owen." Claire's heart pounded as she crept toward the window, peering into the darkness. A figure stood just beyond the porch light, a shadow wrapped in a dark hoodie, face hidden. Without thinking, Claire grabbed her phone and quietly dialed 911. The operator instructed her to stay calm and not confront the intruder. Max started barking loudly, his powerful voice echoing through the house. The figure flinched but didn't move. Instead, they reached into their pocket and pulled out something small, an envelope. Claire's eyes widened. Was this a message, a threat, or something else entirely? Max's barking intensified, and suddenly the figure dropped the envelope and darted away, disappearing into the night like a ghost. Claire rushed to the door, grabbed the envelope, and quickly closed the door behind her. Hands shaking, she opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph, an old picture of Claire with a man she barely remembered. The man was smiling, but his eyes held a coldness that sent a chill down her spine. The photograph triggered a flood of memories. Years ago, Claire had been involved with someone she thought she could trust. The relationship had ended badly, abruptly and painfully. She had moved on, hoping to leave that chapter behind. But now it seemed that past was haunting her again. Claire showed the photo to Detective Harris the next morning. "Do you know this man?" she asked, voice trembling. Harris nodded grimly. "That's Thomas Reed. He has a history. Domestic disputes, stalking, harassment. He's been in and out of trouble for years." Claire swallowed hard. Thomas Reed. The name sent a ripple of fear through her chest. The police began searching for Thomas, warning Claire to be vigilant. Claire, in turn, fortified her home further. New locks, motion sensor lights, cameras placed at every entrance. Max remained ever watchful, his instincts sharper than ever. For the first time in weeks, Claire felt a flicker of hope that she might catch a break and find peace again. But one night, as Claire tucked Lily into bed, she noticed Max stiffen near the window. His hackles rose and a low growl escaped his throat. Claire looked out and saw a shadowy figure moving just beyond the yard. Her breath caught. Thomas was back. Claire's heart pounded as she called the police, but she also knew one thing for certain: she wouldn't face this alone. Max growled, ready to defend his family. Claire gripped his collar gently and whispered, "Let's protect each other, boy." The night was far from over, and neither was the fight. Claire's breath hitched as she stared through the window at the shadow moving in the yard. Max's growl deepened, a low rumble warning that danger was near. The past had caught up with them, and Claire knew the moment of truth had arrived. She dialed 911 with trembling hands, whispering the address to the dispatcher. The police promised immediate backup, but Claire was painfully aware of the seconds ticking by. Max stood tall, muscles coiled and ready, blocking the door to protect his family. Lily, sleeping peacefully in her crib, was oblivious to the storm brewing outside. Suddenly the doorbell rang, a sharp, deliberate knock. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. She peered through the peephole and saw the unmistakable figure of Thomas Reed, face obscured by a hood but body tense and purposeful. Claire's mind raced. This was the man who had haunted her dreams, threatened her safety, and broken her peace. But tonight, she wasn't alone. Max was here, and so was the Yi, Law, the doorbell rang again, more insistently. Claire took a deep breath and steadied herself. "No," she whispered, "not this time." With a sudden surge of courage, Claire opened the door just enough to see Thomas's face clearly. He glared at her, eyes burning with a mixture of rage and desperation. "I'm here for what's mine," he hissed. Claire stepped back and Max growled fiercely, his body between Thomas and the house. The dog's protective stance was unwavering, teeth bared just enough to warn. Thomas hesitated, eyes flickering with uncertainty. He wasn't expecting resistance, not like this. Suddenly, flashing blue and red lights lit up the yard. Police. Officers poured out of their vehicles, surrounding the house with calm but firm authority. Thomas looked around, realizing he was trapped. "Drop whatever you have," an officer commanded. Thomas raised his hands, defeated, as officers moved in and handcuffed him. Claire felt a wave of relief wash over her. The nightmare was over. The man who had terrorized her family was finally in custody. Max, still alert, but now relaxed, trotted to Claire's side, nuzzling her hand. Claire knelt down, tears streaming as she hugged her loyal protector. "You saved us, Max," she whispered. "You really did." The following days brought a new kind of peace to the Parker household, with Thomas Reed behind bars and police. Patrols increased. Claire felt safe again for the first time in months. She watched Lily take her first steps in the living room, Max close behind, watching over her like a guardian angel. Claire knew that the bond between her daughter and her dog was unbreakable. Max had not only protected her family, but had taught her the true meaning of loyalty and love. In the quiet moments, Claire often reflected on everything they had endured, the fear, the uncertainty, the darkness, but also the courage and strength. That had brought them through. Max had been more than a pet. He had been a savior, and Claire knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together.